Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
But if you say it's moist because it has pudding inside, it becomes funny. So accents make it funny. Uh,
Well, welcome to the Comedians in Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Konstantin Lavysh. Konstantin, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
how you doing? My name is Konstantin Lavysh, and I'm glad to be here. Good to chat with you. I've been around the world quite a bit. I've tried different paths of life, and ended up in Los Angeles as an actor, as a sort of a dream come true for me in a way. Because as a kid, I was a bit of an actor, and then I chose a different path, and eventually came back to it. Couldn't do without it. And I've tried filmmaking as well as I worked as AD. I worked in production, but main focus has always been acting, and that's been my sort of my favorite thing to do. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's awesome. Well, why don't we throw in a little bit of comedy into there, shall we?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comment section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. All right. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So
Sure.
I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So Konstantin, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
Sure. Yeah, I can agree with that. I watched your podcast, and I never thought of it like that. For me, it's always been more of a professional choice, as in a funny person is just a funny person, and they're just funny naturally. And then there's a professional who, does it for a living and excels and goes to comedy schools to get better, or, upright citizens brigade or something. To sort of, but then your perception of it is much more interesting and intriguing, I think. So I like it.
Well, yeah. So basically, from the comedy clubs, that's where I was introduced to this idea of a separation. And
Mhm.
so another way to look at it is to say that the comedian is internal and the comic is external. So,
Sure.
like, you're telling jokes about yourself if you're a comedian, and if you're a comic, you're telling jokes about others. That's another
Sure.
way. Does that ring a bell and make sense?
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. Yeah,
Awesome. All right. So, ready for the first question?
let's do it.
All right, it's about the role of persona in comedy. So, how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
I think it depends, and that's the thing. With it's probably going to be an answer to a lot of questions. Because very few things in life are, straightforward, easy to answer. Persona is a huge deal, but you look at Jack Black being a persona, and is he like that in real life? Is Jim Carrey like that in real life when he does Ace Ventura? Not really, but if you don't pull from what you are, then, I don't know any single successful um, comedian who would be putting on a persona that's nothing to do with what they really are. I feel like just like in any acting, because essentially we're back to that question, if nothing comes from you, from real you, then, it's just not gonna work, probably.
Well, would you perhaps consider that as a comedic actor instead of a comedian character?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
comedic actor sounds better for that. Yeah.
All right. How about punching up versus punching down? So, where do comics versus comedians subscribe on this? And let me put it in some historical context.
Sure.
Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Yeah, definitely yes. Let's go with slaughter that man. And then yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
uh,
he got it. He got the short end of the stick on that. So would you say that the audience agreement with the comedian is a form of permission or alignment?
permission more than alignment, I think. It's you got to permit it. You got to believe in it, you know. You got to buy into it. So
Okay.
that
And
would
if you
be
don't buy into it, then you're basically gonna lose. You're gonna lose the crowd, right?
you're definitely gonna lose the crowd. You're gonna and you play the crowd, you use the crowd, you use the reaction, just like anything in theater, anything in public, anything, and forget professional acting and all that. Forget theater, sitcoms where if you say a joke and no one's laughing, I mean, there's an audience. If they're not laughing, and they're only laughing because it says applause, then
Hmm.
writers will go right back to rewriting the whole thing. Because guess what? It's not working. But think of
Yeah.
this: in any company, you sit down with your friends and you're telling a joke, and if people are like, okay, all right, well, there you go, you just lost them.
Yeah.
So you do everything not to lose them. Look at kids, the best example of anything, how kids interact, and they want the attention, so they want to try to be more funny, and they'll make a farty sound or they'll hit themselves in the face because they want that attention and they want the laughter. Where
Yeah,
does
to
that
get
come from?
to generate the surprise, right? Of course, kids
Sure,
are more surprised because they haven't seen as much, right?
sure.
So it's harder to get an older person to actually be surprised. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. That's when you got to put in the more work. But
Yes.
but the logic of it, I think, is the same. It's the look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. I can be funny. I can be funny. I'll do what do you want me to do? Gesture idea.
Right.
So
I like it. I like it. Okay. So, so this is an interesting one. So, cultural translation of comedy. So, how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
I love this one because I've sort of traveled and lived all over the world. And also, I wasn't born in America. So to me, up until when I was 16, I didn't really know much about America per se,
Mhm.
or even American movies. We saw, Cobra with Stallone and Judgment Day and whatever. But for comedy, a lot of it is greatly interpreted and translated when it comes down to physical comedy. And physical comedy is the same, I think, in any culture. If someone slips and falls, Benny Hill, or
Mhm.
whether you're in China or in Africa, it doesn't matter. It's just funny. It just that's what we laugh at. But then there are plenty culturally, how would I put it, grounded jokes grounded in culture and in traditions and habits. Like cereal jokes would not work in, Russia because they wouldn't know what the cereal is. Like, you mean kasha, the one that buried, and it just doesn't work. But then what is funny, the flip side of it is for a foreigner or for someone who puts on an accent, it's a Klondike of an opportunity because then it's like so I was on a show called Mom, Chuck Lorre show, and there's a joke that's super simple. It's you say, oh, the bundt cake is moist because it has pudding inside. Now if I just say it like that, okay, so it's kind of funny-ish. It's moist pudding. But if you say it's moist because it has pudding inside, it becomes funny. So accents make it funny. Fish
Yes.
out of water kind of situation. Eccentrics from, a foreigner who is just a fish out of water. He doesn't understand what's happening. That's funny. That's funny because there's nothing funny about mundane situations for us, but it is for them because that's a baby eye looking at things and, making mundane things funny. And that's so translation. It sometimes comedies that and like Elf or something in a foreign country would be still super funny, but for a very different reason. And it's to me it's
You said
hilarious because
Alf, like alien life form with the
no,
character.
Elf like the movie with what's his face? Khan and um Will Ferrell. Oh my God.
Oh, okay, got it.
Like so he's just funny anywhere. Like he's just funny
Right,
for anybody. But there's so many more intricacies with accents and with the play on tradition and everyone exploits it and they should because, why not?
right. Okay, so then how does the silence when your joke doesn't land hurt? Physically, emotionally, morally, or spiritually?
Oh, I hope it's not spiritual. Not spiritually, please, Lord. Um, I would say, I mean, emotional goes back into it's if it's really bad, it's physical though. Like you feel it in your gut. You feel just like, ah, I suck. Oh, this is bad. And it's just horrible. Hopefully not spiritual though, because then it just demises you as a creature.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I've if you try too hard, that's what you're gonna have to shed your skin, right? You're like, I'm just
yeah,
gonna be a
yeah,
different person entirely.
yeah.
Okay, so got a new question here, a new
Okay.
topic. So love and justice. So is the highest function of comedy to expose injustice or to make people feel less alone while living with it?
Hmm. Gone. No, this is it.
That's
This
it.
is the question. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Um, I feel like in general, a lot of the time, what we want from comedy and from, well, any story, but especially comedy, is to not feel alone, is to get away from whatever makes us feel hurt or alone. And
hmm.
so then that would be my kind of perception. It's to feel less alone, to get away from your, yeah.
Would you see that these are polar opposites to expose injustice?
Yeah, no,
Also,
absolutely.
while
I would agree with phrasing it like that too, because it's they're well very different subject matters altogether. I think, yeah, exposing injustice versus hiding from um loneliness are not
yeah,
exactly
yeah,
comparable, I think.
they're not. Yeah, it's a strange juxtaposition. Okay, so how about when a joke harms someone unintentionally?
Beady,
Does
beady, beady,
love
beady.
demand accountability or does justice demand defiance?
I'd say love accountability more. Because
Okay,
again, with jokes, you wanna maybe hurt someone, but more, you wanna do this. You don't wanna drop someone to the ground and watch them bleed. Maybe that's because that's no longer funny. That's just mean. And
right,
there's that thin balance of, like anger versus frustration. Anger is not funny. Frustration is,
right,
so it's the same thing. Like hurt, I don't know, slightly offend, yes, definitely. Hurt is
right.
it goes into this weird land of maybe
Yeah, it's hopefully slapstick at the best, right?
definitely slap. Yes, always. But measure it a little bit. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very important question. Advertising and self promotion. Who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician?
You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast to get the message out today. See you soon.
Ooh, the magician. I would go with a magician any day because they fascinate me and they are probably from Venus or Mars or some other planet. They're definitely not from Earth because what they do is impossible.
Well,
So
they
they're
wouldn't say
better
that.
at
They would call it science, right? It's just undiscovered
sure.
undiscovered science is
O-
magic.
Okay, I'll make this, thing levitate or Star Wars it and force it and whatever. Call it whatever. Point is, it's
Right.
impossible, and they're doing
Right.
it. So there, I said it.
Yeah.
They're not from Earth.
So so, so is self-promotion seen as selling out or is it necessary for survival?
It's necessary for survival in our world now, I think, and for some time now.
Hmm.
Some people just get lucky. Like, you're crossing the street and Luc Besson sees you and says, "Hey, you want to be in a movie? Okay. You want to be a lead in it? Okay." And there you go.
Hmm.
Harrison Ford it or whatever. Happens, sure. But realistically, also, most of the time it doesn't. So You gotta put in the work, and I'm horrible with social media and all that, stuff they tell you have to do. I'm
Mm.
like, I'm gonna go in my garden and take care of my tomatoes instead. But really, you should be self-promoting, especially in the world of comedy when you want to book a show or you want to do a show. You better self-promote. Otherwise, you're just gonna, well, work on your tomatoes and no one will know about you.
Maybe that's the way. I know Bashar would
Maybe.
say, follow your passion, and that's his
Certainly.
guide to life. Okay, so
Oh, absolutely.
censorship and defense. So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
That's actually a really good point. And yes, I would say so. It's because so, remember Andrew Dice Clay in the 90s? You ever seen
Hmm.
that? Yeah,
Yeah,
so maybe like if you do any of those jokes now, he would probably not make it very far
yeah,
because it was funny in the 90s to be offensive. And now you kind of have to be very careful not to offend people too much. And it's a weird balance that it's just a cultural thing that goes with the time. Times change, that changes too. And it's because I'm a little older, I remember that stuff in the 80s and the 90s where, yeah, you offend people. That's the point. And now it's kind of, you gotta tread a little more lightly. So for comic, you tread more lightly yet because you do want to be funny, but you're sort of now, it's loaded in you to not, to be more careful
yeah.
with how you have fun. And it starts in school. I got three kids. They're all in preschool and school and all that. And it starts pretty early. Stuff that I grew up, no one would tell us that. You'd be like, whatever. So you push someone, big whoop. Is there blood? No, you'll be fine. I mean, say sorry, whatever. But like, it wasn't a big deal. Now it's all like, oh, we don't touch people, we don't hug people, we say hi, we ask them how they feel, we value each other's feelings, and it's all so meticulous and
Yeah.
precise. We didn't grow up like that. So it was more like, yeah, whatever. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now
in the same way,
I'm in
jokes
this.
change. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
exactly. Jokes. Now we have to be very. I would argue more skilled. Or is that perhaps
Hmm.
that's what's happening in the schools is that their expectations are higher on the skill
Sure.
level. Even though I
Yeah.
know the end results now has been poor math skills, so I don't know if the precision has been effective, but that's another
Eh,
topic.
different topic for sure. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's so as a comic, you'd probably be more careful with how you'll be less inclined to poke a little deeper.
Okay, so then who survives better in the cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
Oh. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Oh, magician, technically, because they're just making magic. I mean, there's nothing offensive about it,
Right?
right? Here's
Usually.
a here's a dove, or you know what? Well, oh, but you're like, are you treating your dove nicely? No, I'm gonna eat it. Okay, so maybe offensive a little bit, but comics for sure, because if you're just funny person, then you'll just be funny sort of, in any sort of, as many frames that are put on you, you just are that.
Hmm.
And because it's not a professional thing of you having to do this, you just find your way. And an example for this, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, Flannery, but I was born in the Soviet Union, which is USSR, Russia, and all those countries were one country back then. And it was very, communist driven and very censored, right? So you couldn't say stuff unless you're in the kitchen with a cigarette. Um, so it's the comedies were amazing though, and you can watch them now with translation, and they're just funny because you were so limited in what you could do.
Hmm.
All that comicness came out
Hmm.
into comedians because they had to express and make people laugh. They had to do this, but they couldn't, do all that much.
It
So it
was
was
all in the
very narrow.
subtext. It was all in the
So
subtext,
all
right
that
there.
talent, though, squeezed into that narrow hole, making them
Right.
their talents pop through and making them all that much better, frankly.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I don't think it's a problem. But comics. So,
Okay. All right. So timing and delivery, is it a science or an art?
I think it depends on the level.
Hmm.
Um, if you are just good, then it's a science because anyone can master it. Anyone can be faster, louder, funnier as they teach you in actors comedy studio or anywhere else where you can learn comedy. T- Technically learn.
Mhm.
But then people who make it into an art, that's the ones you really want to see. So I think that's how I would break them down.
All right. Referring to comedy school, now that's when we know we're getting some gold.
Well,
So how about comedy as commentary? So when does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
um, when they have nothing better to do because they lost their train of thought, maybe.
Mm, I could see that.
That's
Well, I mean,
definitely
some
one of those options.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Actually, I've seen that happen quite often where it kind of spirals down into a rant and they don't even
Yeah.
know what they're ranting about, right? Because they lost
Not
their
anymore,
material.
no. Like, oops,
Yeah.
I forgot where were we? Pasta. Yes, Italians eat a lot of pasta. Let's laugh at
Yeah. Well,
that.
exactly. Yeah. And then how much I hate pasta. It's like, really?
Oh,
Why do you hate pasta? Well, that would be where it would devolve into, right? And why
yeah, but
everyone
now
should
it's
hate.
you're gonna have to yes and it, and now you can't say you don't you actually love pasta because I mean everyone loves pasta, so there you go. But yeah, I think it's like a defense mechanism. Let's slide into that. Unless you have a purpose, but then comedy for philosophizing is not necessarily the best instrument, I think.
Okay. All right. So, Konstantin, are you ready to enter the multiverse?
Okay.
All right. Board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. If comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
The first one. Thank you. Very much,
Final answer, the
definitely.
color. So then does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
Uh, But both are important. You can't, I wouldn't like, I
But you have
would
to
be
choose a
better.
character, your avatar in the multiverse.
Okay,
It's like your astral self when you're dreaming. You got to have a body up in the eternal
yeah,
plane.
I'd like to have a body. It's so much better to drink coffee with. It's, I'm not very good at orchestrating and making timing perfect for someone else, if that makes
Okay.
sense. So then I kind of have to
Huh.
choose, the other
The
stuff.
first one, the colorist.
Yeah, yeah, I'll be the
Okay.
color. Okay.
Okay. Interesting. I like that. So, all right. So, here on the Comedians in Elevators podcast, we have a tradition where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. And the
Okay.
previous guest was Eugene Samolin. And his
Mhm.
question for you, Konstantin, is what makes you laugh more? A funny person telling a bad joke or a bad person telling a funny joke?
Funny person for sure. Telling a bad
Telling a
joke.
bad joke?
Sure. Well, t tell you what, if you're funny and you're telling a bad joke and you're really trying hard, it's funny in itself. It's like it's already funny.
Right.
You're funny. It's just you're a delight to observe, It's like I don't know, like if Brad Pitt is telling a really bad joke, you still enjoy looking at Brad Pitt. You know what I mean? Bad example.
I don't
It's
think
not
of him as
funny.
a funny person,
No,
even
no,
with his,
it's a bad example because you just I mean more as in you look at
but I see where
someone.
you're going with that. I immediately
Yeah.
imagined Hitler telling a joke. That was
Okay,
my
maybe
first, because I'm like, he's never been funny. Like he's never tried to be funny as I
no.
can tell. So if he told a really good joke, I'd be like, I'm not laughing because it's Hitler telling the joke.
Yeah, that's it could probably never work because yeah, there's a certain emotional like I don't like movies when they make Hitler funny or anything because to me it's just like a I don't wanna I like that's not he's not fun it's not funny he's not funny
All
He's
right,
like
I'm gonna
pure
push you a little
evil
bit.
kind of thing.
Can I
Okay,
push it a little bit, Konstantin, on this one?
do it.
What if Putin were telling a funny joke?
How funny we're talking.
A
I
funny
mean,
joke. You're like, that's a funny
yeah.
joke, but it's
So
yeah,
I feel like with when you have a certain emotion towards a person, feel very strongly about someone, it doesn't really matter what they do because you already perceive them a
right.
certain way. So now they can do whatever.
Mm,
And if they do some amazing physical comedy and you didn't notice immediately it's them, you will laugh net just because you can't not laugh. Same with a really good joke, probably. It just there's a
interesting.
certain when you once you see someone you feel very strongly about,
Right.
that will dominate any of your, it will cover up any of your sensory responses because you are now in this other world of reacting to a really strong irritant,
Mm.
right?
So to me, the first thing that came to mind was actually Putin or even Hitler in like a bear suit. You don't know it's them. They tell a joke with the microphone, and then they take, and you're like, oh, it's hilarious. And then they take it off, and you're like, I don't know if you don't know how to feel at that
Yeah,
point because you realize who actually told the joke, but you didn't know, and so now you're
yeah.
like stuck in this world. So that's the first thing that
Well,
came to
that's,
my mind.
if Hitler tells a joke in a bear costume and it's funny, I'll laugh. And then when he takes his thing off, I'd be like, why is he alive? And this is very confusing. And I'm
Besides the
also
obvious,
I'm kind of sad that I just laughed at that now, but I mean, it was
right,
funny. So you're right.
right.
Yeah, it's if you know but then I'll maintain that if you know a person and you feel strongly about them, that will be your first, that would, you know,
Yeah.
dictate what happens
That's why I had to
next.
make it difficult, right? Put it,
Yeah.
go back. You had
No,
to go
same.
back in time for this one to
When it's
work.
difficult, it's more interesting, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right. Last question. Legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics tight five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
Say the first part again, please.
Will the comics tight five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
I don't think cultural point of view will be timeless per se, as much as
But it's the comedian, it's the
yeah,
person you remember, where the comic may not be so.
that's true. But then, how do you what's
Which do
what's more what's more
more
lasting,
memorable, right?
more memorable? I mean, if you're going to like, well, comic is a person you have beers with in a bar, and comedian is Will Ferrell, and of course Will Ferrell will be more memorable because he's in every freaking movie, and your bud from the bar is not. So like, how do you
Well,
compare the two? But in general, what's more lasting, I think, is comic is more lasting because comedians change from jester in the medieval days when, you know, cutting people's limbs was funny, maybe, or
I guess
inquisiting
it's
them
how they
into.
cut the limbs.
Wait, that's the thing. See, now
Yeah,
you're becoming medieval funny. Very nice.
exactly. It's how we do
It's
it.
how you pull the vein.
It's
It's
how
not.
you do it the wrong way. It's
No, you
not
do.
this
Look,
way.
you
It's
have to put your dirty
a
nail
little
inside.
twist on it. You
You
have to put a
twist a
twist
little,
on it.
and then you
That's
drink the
right.
blood. I mean, that's what you do. But that, so that changed a little bit, and but then again, now also with culture wars, with cancel cultures, with everything's changing. Who knows what it's gonna be like in 15 years or 25?
Yeah.
But funny people are just funny people, and I feel like that's never gonna go anywhere because sense of humor is what keeps us alive, I think, a lot of the times, or at least makes our life much more worth living and longer, hopefully too. You know?
I'm waiting for, I know there's going to be, and it's probably going to be in movies first, is where the first funny robot as an actual individual robot as a personality. So when that happens, that's when new times have arrived. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping it's not gonna happen
Hmm.
because like we've seen robots telling jokes in movies before, and
Right, but they're
like
comedic. I would argue that those are
yeah,
comedic.
comedic. Yeah.
Sometimes like Johnny Five, I don't know if you remember Johnny
I was
Five.
just gonna bring him up. Yeah.
Right, and he's because he was going to die. He doesn't want to die, and we know that trope, right? The robot doesn't want to die. We get it.
Right. Yeah.
But aside from that part, the mortal aspect,
the character itself being funny. So that one's a little bit in between, I guess. So no.
Yeah. But
So
hopefully it'll just be us people doing the funny stuff and let the robots make cars and whatever else they do. So
yeah, whatever. Well, we know what else they're going to soon be doing, but we're going to
well,
leave
hopefully
that
not
for another
killing
time.
us all like in Judgment Day, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is not gonna have to come and save us all, what's
Yeah.
left of us,
I don't
or
know.
kill
I think
us. It's
that's the
confusing.
most prophetic movies of all time, especially
Yeah.
as time we get closer to that date. So,
Yeah. What
so
does AI
Constantine,
inevitably do? Kill us all. Let's make some more of it then. You know?
let's have them fight first, and then we'll be so. So, Constantine, where can everybody find you online?
Oh, I'm online. I'm socially socially
Socially mediated.
media. Instagram, I think, is the easiest and the one I use the most, and it's just my name, spelled as weird as it does. It's Konstantin Lavysh, and that's yeah. Instagram would do it because there's all the updates for stuff coming out or just whatever.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Constantine, thank you so much for being my guest, and for
Thank you
everyone,
for
please, yeah, absolutely, and everyone, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
All right, sounds great. Thank you, Kenan.
If you're interested in too much information like in the network state or Mantipus the chicken shit, check out this video. Or is it this one right here? Well, either way. Lizard.